Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Munatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Prabhupada, Tali Sadhu Shima, Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Morning Ki Jai. Gaur Brahmanandi Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, text number 54. So we've got a lot of Sanskrit here today, so I'm just going to read through this. Sumannaha sama dhamanam stinham saranam vashamhe pushpa madhu gandavat chudratamam kamyakama vipakajam kama sukalavam Jai Vyopyasyadhi Vichinvantam Mutunhi Bhuyata Dabhiniveshita Manasam Sarangri Ganasama Gitabhad Ati Manohara Vanitadi Jana Lapesh Vatitaram Ati Pralobita Khanam Agrevrika Yuttavad Atmanam Ayo Haratoho Harachantan Kalalava Visheshan Viganabhya Griheshu Viharantam Prishatta Eva Aparoksham Anuprabritto Lubdakaha Kitandho Nataha Sarinayamiha Paravidyatitam Imam Atmanam Mahorajan Bina Hridayam Drashtam Arhashiti. Translation. My dear king, woman who is very attractive in the beginning, but in the end very disturbing, is exactly like the flower, which is attractive in the beginning and detestable at the end. With women, the living entity is entangled with lusty desires and he enjoys sex, just as one enjoys the aroma of a flower. He thus enjoys a life of sense gratification, from his tongue to his genitals. And in this way, the living entity considers himself very happy in family life. United with his wife, he always remains absorbed in such thoughts. He feels great pleasure in hearing the talks of his wife and children, which are like the sweet humming of bumblebees that collect honey from flower to flower. He forgets that before his time, which is taking away his lifespan with the passing of day and night. He does not see the gradual diminishing of his life, nor does he care about the superintendent of death who is trying to kill him from behind. Just try to understand this. You are in a precarious position and are threatened from all sides. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Materialistic life means forgetting one's constitutional position as the eternal servant of Krishna. And this forgetfulness is especially enhanced in the Grihastha ashram. In the Grihastha ashram, a young man accepts a young wife who is very beautiful in the beginning, but in due course of time, after giving birth to many children and becoming older and older, she demands many things from the husband to maintain the entire family. At such a time, the wife becomes detestable to the very man who accepted her in her younger days. One becomes attached to the Grihastha ashram for two reasons only. The wife cooks palatable dishes for the satisfaction of her husband's tongue, and she gives him sexual pleasure at night. A person attached to the Grihastha ashram is always thinking of these two things: palatable food and sex enjoyment. The talks of the wife, which are enjoyed as a family recreation, and the talks of the children both attract the living entity. He thus forgets that he has to die someday and has to prepare for the next life if he wants to be put into a congenial body. The deer in the flower garden is an allegory used by the great sage Narada to point out to the king that the king himself is similarly entrapped by such surroundings. Actually, everyone is surrounded by such a family life which misleads one. The living entity thus forgets that he has to return home back to Godhead. He simply becomes entangled in family life. Prahlad Maharaj has therefore hinted, Hitvatma patam griham anda kupam bana gatho yad darim ashriyata. Family life is considered a blind well under kupam into which a person falls and dies without help. Prahlad Maharaj recommends that while one's senses are there and one is strong enough, he should abandon the Grihastha ashram and take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, going to the forest of Vrindavan. According to Vedic civilization, one has to give up family life at a certain stage, the age of 50, take vanaprastha, and eventually remain alone as a sannyasi. That is the prescribed method of Vedic civilization known as varnashram dham. When one takes sannyas after enjoying family life, he pleases the Supreme Lord Vishnu. One has to understand one's position in family or worldly life. That is called intelligence. One should not remain always trapped in family life to satisfy his tongue and genitals in association with a wife. In such a way, one simply spoils his life. According to Vedic civilization, it is imperative to give up the family at a certain stage, by force if necessary. Unfortunately, so-called followers of Vedic life do not give up their family even at the end of life unless they are forced by death. There should be a thorough overhauling of the social system, and society should revert to the Vedic principles, that is the 4 varnas and the 4 ashramas. Om Jamiranjasha Jananjana Salakaya Chakshuram Marutanjana Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. So this here we see that the Varnashram institution is to regulate the tendency to enjoy the senses, beginning from the tongue down to the genitals. If that is not regulated, of course, that uncontrolled sense gratification, which is very attractive in the beginning, but giving no pleasure in the end. In fact, in the end, the same circumstances can be very, very disturbing. One should give up that position, a very temporary and limited source of happiness, and instead one should seek out eternal happiness, getting out of the cycle of birth and of death, getting out of the cycle of birth and death, and going back to Godhead. So that is the Varnashram, a Daivi Varnashram, is meant to help us to, go back to the spiritual world. So here we see that in this purport, of course, it describes the women, the wife, giving trouble to the husband. But I'm sure, I've heard somewhere that sometimes the husbands give trouble to the wife. Would that be right? Most likely, especially in Kali Yuga. Actually, in Kali Yuga, around the world, domestic violence, where 70, 80, 90% of the trouble is given by the man to the wife. That's the actual fact of the matter. And we find the more association a woman has with a man, the more likely there is to be domestic violence by the man. So therefore, because we're in lockdown, because of the coronavirus system, domestic violence, alcoholism, because generally for the men, they're working during the day, and they're not spending all day with the wife or the children. They actually feel some, sense of, relief of some pressure. Sometimes too much time in the home is like a pressure cooker. And now, because of the crisis around the world, many men are having to spend more time with their wife and children, and it's very difficult for them. And they're becoming frustrated, and they're not finding happiness, so they're taking intoxication, and then in an intoxicated state, and then they're simply, the purpose of having just a sex life and so many different things, and all their senses being somehow satisfied by the other members of the family, it's just not a very good proposition. And so there's a lot of frustration and a lot of anger, a lot of disturbance. Women and children should not be looked upon as objects of exploitation. And of course, if they are, that's going to cause problem, both for the women, the children, and for the men. So, and for society, of course. So, it goes both ways, but here, because, Narada Muni is speaking to a man, he's presenting his situation, seeing your position in family life with wife and children as something pleasing, but it's not. And of course, especially in Kali Yuga, if you were talking to any woman, you would present the same thing, except that you would present your thinking. You are living in family life. It's very nice in the beginning, and then it just turns very sour at the end. Living with that same man who you loved in the beginning. So therefore, ultimately, the Varnashram system teaches that one should not seek out such a illusory type of happiness, which is more like a drop of water in the desert, which really just agitates the mind, doesn't really satisfy. So one should give up that process, not search that out, life after life, even in the animal species. So here it's recommending, Prabhupada is saying there should be a thorough overhauling of the social system. So throughout the world we should not live like that. Throughout the world, actually this is the common situation that people live in, right to the point of death, even if circumstances are very, very disturbing, right to the point of death, because there may be some little hope of sense gratification, people will stay in family life like that. It's the law of diminishing returns. So it's like with, people take cigarettes, alcohol, drugs. So in the beginning, a little bit of sense gratification with intoxication, and they get a big, buzz. As time goes on, they have to spend more money, take more intoxication, which has a greater effect on the body and the mind, gradually destroying the body and the mind, destroying one's relationships with everyone, destroying one's finances. So one is putting more and more sacrifice, experiencing more and more problem, and the same drugs are giving less, so they have to take more and more of the drugs. So it's the law of diminishing returns. like that. And material happiness is, always follows that law. So even in family life, it follows that same law. So, the Vedas are not necessarily having a poke at family life. It's pointing out that this is the nature of material enjoyment, like that. So, therefore, our social system, which is based upon this trying to enjoy material life and getting diminishing returns, that system should be overhauled, and it should be overhauled by reverting to the Vedic principles. So Srila Prabhupada is, saying the Vedic principles is that there are 4 ashrams and 4 varnas. 4 varnas, or social divisions, means that if one's material conditioning, material nature, which covers the pure nature of the soul, if it is predominantly in sattva or goodness, where there is knowledge, such persons in the social division generally guide society. They act as, teachers, ministers, and persons of knowledge, counsellors. In many different ways they're guiding society. Those who are predominantly in rajas, or they're more passionate by nature, they have less knowledge, less understanding, and a little bit more tendency to act, even though they have a little bit of less knowledge, they have more tendency to act. And they want to, manipulate the material nature and the material world for particular purposes. Of course, this is very good if they want to take up administration, because if they're guided by those with full knowledge, then they are in a good position to administrate and to get things done and organise society. And then you have the Vaishyas. They're a mixture of rajas, passion, and tamas. So a little less knowledge, a little bit more ignorance, you can say it that way. They're still very active, but they come under the administrators and the brahmanas who are guiding the administrators, and they produce the needs of society. And then you have those who are, not much knowledge, but they do have the tendency to follow the higher 3 sections, and they like the legs of society. They work very hard to under the others, and they're like the labour force, like that. And such persons don't particularly have a desire to be rulers or teachers. They're quite happy actually with some of the simple necessities of life, and to live with their family and enjoy family life. But under the Vedic principles, where the goal is, even for such persons, under the guidance of those with knowledge, they're still being cultivated in spiritual consciousness, whereby all of those sections of society are eligible to go back to Godhead if they actually follow the leaders. So then you have the spiritual orders. You have the brahmacharis. So in the beginning there are the celibate students, and then the celibate students, they will naturally take to most of them, 90% more, they will become married, and but they will live in married life in a regulated way, knowing that eventually, when the children have grown up, they will give up, all sex life. They may live together. They may then perform different spiritual practices to prepare for going back to Godhead. That is the main thing, more so than family life. And then that can lead to sannyas, in which case the men 100% are on the position of complete renunciation, and there is no connection whatsoever. They are literally, it's almost like civilly dead in one sense. There's no connection with women at all. Very, very strict. So now we know that in Kali Yuga, so Prabhupada's saying here that society should revert to Vedic principles. But we also know that Srila Prabhupada and our scriptures describe that in Kali Yuga, apart from the most simplest process of spiritual life, Harinam, chanting the holy names of the Lord, everything else is pretty much not possible to be implemented on a full scale. Perhaps to some small degree, but to the full scale, Vedic principles cannot be implemented. But as we can see here, Prabhupada, throughout his books, he is suggesting it should be implemented. So this is an interesting topic, for our class. And because today is the disappearance day of Jayananda, I want to discuss that by how it actually manifests in the life of a devotee following the Varnashram under the guidance of a spiritual master through the processes of Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and how through the practice of devotional service that what may take many, many lifetimes, hundreds, thousands and thousands of lifetimes, gradually through the Varnashram, gradually coming to the point of complete detachment in one lifetime under the guidance of a spiritual master by practicing devotional service, especially predominant with the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, one can actually perfect all the ashrams in one lifetime and go back to Godhead in one lifetime. So I'm going to discuss that point. So, and it gives a good idea of how we implement Varnashram within our society, and how by and large, depending on a person how much they take up the devotional or the spiritual aspect of Daivi Varnashram, they may depend, many people may depend more on some of the general principles of Varnashram, which can be implemented and should be implemented in Kali Yuga. And to the degree that they take up the spiritual process of bhakti, to that degree they can transcend the modes of material nature and therefore the Varnashram, or in other words, they can perfect, attain the qualifications of one who has perfected all the ashrams. It's considered in the Bhagavad Gita, when the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, it says that even if one is not a member of the Varnashram, if one is a Chandala or Malecha, so they're considered, very low class, if such a person is chanting the holy names of the Lord, it's considered either in past lives they have performed all the activities of the scriptures, including the Varnashram processes, or if they have not, by the chanting of the holy name, they get that result anyway, and they are so purified that they can even purify others. Whereas, even if one is born in a Brahmana family, if they can't chant the holy name of the Lord, or if they don't chant the holy name of the Lord, they cannot even purify themselves, even though they're expertly following the principles of Varnashram. So, that is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's in the Prabhupada cites it in the 6th chapter, I think it is, 5th or 6th chapter. So, let's have a look here then at some letters by Srila Prabhupada to Jayananda, and how we see some of these points highlighted, and Jayananda, by Srila Prabhupada's standards, is a person that everyone in ISKCON should follow. Yeah. First of all, I'll read this letter. Now this is a letter to Ramaswara, 11th of May 1977, by Srila Prabhupada. And this is after Jayananda, his disappearance. My dear Ramaswara, Jayananda's death is glorious. It is very good that he had stated, "What is the use of such a useless body? Better give it up." He has left his body very wonderfully, and he has been transferred to Vaikuntha. I have already sent a condolence letter for publication in Back to Godhead. Everyone should follow the example of Jayananda. I am very proud that I had such a nice disciple. If possible, Jayananda's picture should be hung in the Rath of Lord Jagannath, and in all our temples a day may be set aside for holding a festival in his honour, just as we do on the disappearance day of other great Vaishnavas. So this hearing, we're going to hear the glories of Jayananda. Yeah? All good? Yeah. Oh yeah, if you got it, yeah. Jayananda, one time, Jayananda walked in, Prabhupada said, "Oh, you look like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." He said, "Yes, very fair complexion, tall, very handsome." And, yeah. So that's a mental image for you anyway. Yeah. So to please Srila Prabhupada and to these activities on the Vaishnava calendar, very significant. If they're on our Vaishnava calendar, they're very significant. He had, was it leukemia? Yeah. Died of cancer. And he had, in the beginning, Prabhupada describes, he was the first person, he donated $5,000 to Prabhupada for Prabhupada could publish his Bhagavad Gita. It's one of I think it was the first. And then in the end, he got another $5,000, which he got for his treatment, and he gave that to Prabhupada. And you see here that here in just before he passed away, I think it was, Prabhupada writes to Jayananda, "Please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter dated February 21st, 1977. And I thank you for the check as well as the nice sentiments you have expressed. In the beginning you also gave me $5,000 and now again you have sent. This body is today or tomorrow finished. We should not be very much bothered about the body. Trees also live for thousands of years, but that does not mean a successful life. A successful life is one of Krishna consciousness. By the grace of Krishna, from the very beginning you are a devotee, and that is the real profit of your life. I thank you for your check, but I would prefer that you may require the money for your treatment. So if you like, I can return it. But I hear that you have some income. I pray to Krishna for your more advanced Krishna consciousness life. About a sadhu it is said, Jivava Marava, a sadhu may live or die, it doesn't matter. While living, he is engaged in Krishna consciousness business, and when dying, he goes back home, back to Godhead, Hoping this finds you improving in your health, your ever well-wisher A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. So twice, he gave that money. And you can see the mood of Prabhupada. Prabhupada was very grateful, but he was also, quite happy to give the money back that you use it. But Jayananda wanted him to have like that. So, just a very loving relationship, trusting relationship. And so on this day, we're going to please Srila Prabhupada. We're going to understand Prabhupada's statement about the implementing Varnashram and how that relates to us perfectly following Prabhupada's instruction as devotees through the life of Jayananda. And I'm going to do that by reading some of the letters of Prabhupada to Jayananda. So, I'm going to read this letter here first. This is I'll read this one first. So, this is the letter to Jayananda. By Prabhupada. My dear Jayananda Das, please accept my blessings. I am in due receipt of your letter dated August the 11th, 1975, and have noted the contents. What you have done is good. Why should you remarry? Rather, you should take sannyas. Now you are getting very good training. Why has Jaitirtha suggested you to remarry? In Delhi, there is a certain kind of laddu which has such a taste that anyone who has tasted it once, he laments. Oh, how I'd like to taste it again. And anyone who has never tasted, he also laments. Oh, I have never tasted. So one who has tasted and one who has not tasted, both are lamenting. Wife is like that. In other words, marriage or sex life is like that. You have already tasted, now you are lamenting. But my advice to you is not to try to taste again, otherwise your lamentation will increase. You've got no children, so you are free, so take sannyas. Sex life is nasty, but out of illusion we think it is nice. Now you are experienced, so don't take sex life again. You should not take sannyas out of sentiment nor artificially, but it is better to accept it anyway. I hope this meets you in good health, you ever well wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So I read that one first because it has it describes the same tone, of this purport and this translation that the nature of family life for men and women, based around eating, sex, and the different senses. As Prabhupada said, it's a nasty business ultimately, in the long run. And whether you think about it, that I have not experienced family life, you'll lament. And if you enter into family life, you'll lament. And, now, I want to go to a previous letter. Now this one here is in 29th of the 9th, 1967. So we're going way back here to the beginning. And that one that I just read, that was in 1975, September 75. Okay? So that's about 8 years later. Right? Yeah. So going back to the beginning, so that's the the end result. But going back to the beginning, we see Prabhupada advising him to get married. My dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I beg to thank you for your letter, undated. I congratulate you on your being elected as President of ISKCON San Francisco branch. Your election as President is a recognition by Krishna, and therefore I've got full support for you. So Prabhupada is fully supporting Jayananda because of how Prabhupada, we see in many different ways, not just because he's temple president, but in many different ways, it's because he's very dear to his god brothers and god sisters. And as we see here, he loves to chant Hare Krishna, which Prabhupada, when he was driving, he could tell. But in many different ways, Prabhupada saw that his enthusiasm, his faith in both Prabhupada, the deity, Krishna, the chanting, preaching, showed that he was recognized by Krishna. And therefore Prabhupada gave his full support. Mukunda and other members have rightly selected you as president. Your service attitude for Krishna and your sincere attempts at being advanced in Krishna consciousness will work with you and make your life more and more glorious and a happy state. I've been very glad that you are appreciating by yourself the effects of sincere Krishna consciousness. I've nothing new to instruct you. The same old instruction, namely constant chanting and attentively hearing the transcendental vibration of Hare Krishna, is the only process for self-realization in this age. Right, so here we see Prabhupada mentioning the same point, that there is no other way to become self-realized and, elevate. I mean, if one doesn't understand that one is a spirit soul and identifies oneself with the body, one is practically on the platform of an animal, because that is their platform. And so the only process mentioned in the scriptures in this age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. And the Acharyas also recommend various principles from the Varnashram, which, if one is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra nicely, then it is possible they can perform them correctly, even though it's the minimum to this age. And by that process, there is a support mechanism, a safety net and a support platform for one who is chanting the holy name of the Lord while one is in the process of taking full shelter of the holy name. Just like taking Brahman, in ISKCON, we follow the Varnashram. Not everyone gets married. That means they're following the Varnashram. If they take Brahman initiation, Varnashram. If they take sannyas, Varnashram. So many different things. Eat with the right hand, is Varnashram. So many baths daily, Varnashram. So many things we follow. And they support one. We see that by taking training as a Brahmana or Brahmani in cleanliness and knowledge of the scriptures and regulating the mind and the senses, it increases our ability to chant Hare Krishna properly. As Prabhupada says, chanting Hare Krishna, the main thing is to chant sincerely and hear it very attentively. Now, if the mind is disturbed, so if people, should be married and that settles the mind so that they can chant very sincerely and hear attentively, that is good. If someone is not married and their mind is really disturbed because they actually need to be married, they'll be chanting and there'll be so much disturbance in their mind and senses all day like that. So it's very supported. So these activities of taking, Brahman training, Brahmani, marriage, so many different things, they allow a person to get a little control of the mind and senses, but the purpose of that is that they will chant Hare Krishna very sincerely and hear with full attention. And that allows the spiritual process. So then in San Francisco, while you were driving your car and I was sitting, by hearing your transcendental vibration, this very sincere attempt has enriched your consciousness, and my only instruction is that you may constantly do this habit without fail. Regarding your dispute in your mind as to remaining a brahmachari, grihasta, or becoming sannyas, there is nothing to be bothered with. Anyone who is in full Krishna consciousness and is dedicating his life for Krishna is already a sannyas even if he is a married man. If you like, you can become a householder, and I have no objection to that. Our Vaishnava philosophy instructs to become vidvati sannyasis. This means a man who knows things as they are. Therefore, a devotee who knows that everything belongs to Krishna and that he is the proprietor of all such a devotee is certainly vidvati sannyasi. Our philosophy is that we should accept things as prasadam of Krishna and nothing for sense enjoyment. Anyone who accepts things for sense enjoyment, even if he is externally a saffron-dressed man, is not a sannyasi. The Mayavadi sannyasi considers himself as God. This concept of life develops under illusion. When a person fails to become the Lord of the universe, it is like the sly fox who attempts to taste grapes and failing to do so says the grapes are sour. The Mayavadi sannyasins are frustrated beings in their attempt to enjoy the world. Therefore they say the world is fake or the grapes are sour. The world is not false. Krishna is the supreme truth and the world is his energy. Therefore the energy of the supreme truth cannot be false. But we must know that this energy is inferior to his spiritual energy. As there are hairs and nails in the body, and sometimes we separate these parts from the body, similarly, when the material energy is separated from the service of the Lord, it is inferior. Inferior energy is not false but temporary. The same temporary energy, when surcharged with Krishna consciousness, it transforms into supreme energy by the supreme will. By this will, any energy can be transformed into another, just like electronic energy in a refrigerator or in a heater. To an ordinary layman, he sees cold and hot, but to an electrician, he sees electricity. So when one is engaged in the service of the Lord, that person is already in the spiritual energy, and a sannyasi, and the real purpose of a sannyasi is to transform himself from the inferior to the superior spiritual energy. If your consciousness is absorbed in Krishna, you are always a sannyasi, your ever well-wisher A.C. Bhaktivedanta. So, in Krishna consciousness, Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita that sex life, according to religious principles, Krishna says, I am that sex life. And in the 6th chapter and in various places, Krishna declares that Arjuna, you are the true sannyasi because you've dedicated everything to the Supreme, so therefore all your activities are not material but they're spiritual, and they only have a spiritual effect, and your consciousness is spiritual as well. So you are the true sannyasi because you've sacrificed everything for the Supreme. Sat-nyasi, Sat, the Supreme, absolute truth, Nyasi, to sacrifice everything for the Supreme. So sannyasi comes from that actual Sanskrit, to sacrifice everything for the Supreme. So sannyasi, sat-nyasa. So, so here, Srila Prabhupada, in one sense, says, don't bother. You're deciding, brahmacharya, grihastha, sannyas. He's saying don't bother in the sense that, it doesn't make a lot of difference. If you want to get married, and through being married, you're chanting very nicely, performing your service in Krishna consciousness, there's no difference between that person and the sannyasi. That is the Vaishnava understanding. Now, apart from the process of bhakti, other forms of those trying to attain self-realization or attain knowledge of the Absolute Truth, they don't understand that and they can't follow that. So, for instance, in the Mayavadi school of, what's his name? Shankaracharya. You take sannyas, then you can begin to practice. It begins from sannyas. To follow the principles of impersonalism, you begin the process when you can take sannyas. And apart from, otherwise, you cannot. Now, so here, the Mayavadis or the impersonalists, they can't understand any aspect of Krishna consciousness. They can't understand the Guru, they can't understand Krishna, and they can't understand the devotee, and they can't understand devotional service. For the impersonalists, for those not on the path of devotion, for everyone else trying to understand spiritual life or attain spiritual progress, and they're not on the path of devotional service, they cannot understand any of these things, and they have a complete misconception of everything. We follow such persons as Jayananda, who's following Srila Prabhupada. Here we see that Jayananda, in one lifetime, went from someone who was not following anything to someone who, went through the different varnas to the renounced order, and then went back to Godhead in one lifetime. So we see there the power of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and we also see that, in one sense, the aspects of Varnashram can be supportive in the beginning, but when one is, fully Krishna conscious, whatever one's Varna or ashram that one is practicing is very external and is no indication of a person's actual spiritual advancement. Therefore, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was travelling through South India and he came across Ramananda Roya, I think he sent Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to also speak with Ramananda Roya. Ramananda Roya was considered to be, although he was a Grihastha and not quite a Sudra, but someone in the lower Varnas materially, ordinarily sannyasis wouldn't have anything to, they're almost untouchable, such persons, even though they're very aristocratic people in one sense. But here the sannyasis was advised by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you take instruction from him. He is spiritually advanced. So when one does chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra nicely, sincerely, and also hears the chanting, they're hearing what they're chanting, then and one is performing activities which are very pleasing to the spiritual master, then one's ashram has no bearing on their transcendental situation, and it makes no difference whether one is sannyasa or grihastha, or brahmacharya, or vanaprastha. Only on the bhakti platform can one transcend all of those external things, and as Krishna said to Arjuna, I want you to transcend, all these different, Vedic principles like that. You want to transcend. Although Krishna was asking him to transcend them, Krishna was also asking, but you're a Kshatriya, you fight. The same as, here. We're here. So one thing we should be very careful of, and sometimes this is a problem, is that a devotee may think, the only way is to chant Hare Krishna. I get that a lot because I do samskaras and yajnas, and devotees ask me, even senior devotees, like, why are you doing that? It's the main thing is Hare Krishna, it's like so many rituals, what are you doing? Is that necessary? And what they don't understand is that, we're asked to do both as it's appropriate. So, Varnashram principles, once Prabhupada was asked, in Kali Yuga, do we need to do samskaras? Prabhupada said minimum. Now, minimum means that every devotee who's, will generally get married. That's minimum. Nearly every devotee will get married. That's samskara. That's minimum. Minimum means our wedding ceremonies can be, 15 minutes, half an hour. In the old days, I remember when I got married, it was the first time, as the whole group of us. It's a very quick ceremony. I think you exchange garlands, the bride walks around you 3 times, you hear a lecture, you have a feast, and that's it. There's not much to it. So, minimum. Don't make too much of a fuss. Not like the 3-day, fiascos that they have sometimes, and then 2 days later they're divorced. So, giving first grains. Quite often first grains, you just literally bring the baby in, put a little mahabhashad in the mouth, ceremony done. Or you can do something more elaborate if people need to see that, So it's a minimum, but, taking initiation, taking pramana, so minimum, but we don't make too much of a fuss. When Prabhupada was, establishing the temple in Vrindavan, he said we can just chant Hare Krishna. Others will criticise, and, so he did some, very elaborate ceremony. So others don't criticise. So, but for the sake of leading people on the right path, and also for the fact that as devotees, we do require to perform activities such as get married, take Brahman, and follow certain principles, because we're not always chanting sincerely 100% of the time and hearing. Quite often, you can sit and hear a devotee chant, and because they're missing 3, sometimes 4 names in the mantra, and the names that they aren't chanting, you can barely recognize them, and you think they're not hearing that mantra, because the mantra, they're not even saying the whole mantra, and there's so much missing from that mantra, and they've chanted, you can watch them chant 16 rounds, and you think they didn't even notice. How can they be hearing something and you don't notice you're not chanting the mantra? So, what's going on is there's other things in the mind. They're not hearing. If there's other things in the mind, then the Vedic processes help us to settle the mind, through various things that we do. Help us to come to a sattvic platform and then chant. So before you chant the Gayatri mantra, you must come to a sattvic platform. You must bathe, sit, nicely dressed, certain times of the day, mind fixed, you must chant the Gayatri and like that. And that practice helps you to chant Hare Krishna properly as well. So, now, this principle is very important. It is, we often hear it, that the material world is not false. What is false is, that it is a place for our enjoyment. And what is false is that I am a product of the material energy. I am, this body. I am a brahmana. I am a sannyasi. I am a woman. I am an Indian. That is false. That being illusioned into a sense of identification or seeing others, and the illusion that I am the enjoyer of this material. That's false. But the material energy is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says this divine energy of mine. He calls it divine energy because it's his eternal energy. It's the eternal energy of God. And for Krishna, it's not material because the material energy has a material quality when it's not used in the service of Krishna. That means that someone cannot see Krishna, how that energy is meant for Krishna's happiness. Do you think Krishna ever looks at the material energy like that? Forgetting himself? Forgetting that's my energy? So for him, it never has a material quality. It's his energy for his purposes. So, but this is the crux of them. Although it's a simple point, it underlies everything. And if we don't understand it, we can't accept the Guru. And if we can't accept the Guru, we can't follow the Guru. And if we can't follow the Guru, we can't follow Krishna. And if we can't follow Krishna, you cannot actually... if one is not taking shelter of Krishna, and even if one is following all the principles of the Varnashram, it is a useless waste of time. If one performs activities by which they're not developing their love for God, it is a waste of time. So, for instance, on the question of Guru, now, we're hearing the pastimes of Jayananda, which Prabhupada wanted us to do on this day. So Prabhupada would be very happy. Now, the impersonalists, well, they would think, well, where is Prabhupada? Their concept is that Guru is this. Guru, actually one Indian said this to Prabhupada directly to his face in India in the morning. Well, your Atma is Guru, your body is not. Now what that means is, what that allows him to do, and what Prabhupada gradually, because he understood, that allowed this person that because Atma is one, then the Atma that's within Prabhupada is the same as the Atma within us and the same as the Atma in any other bogus guru they want to follow. So I can just take a little bit from Prabhupada, make it look like I'm, one of his followers and become popular. Oh yes, I'm a great associate of Prabhupada. I'm also a great associate of Krishna. I'm also a great associate of this one and that one. And not follow anything. So Prabhupada got very animated to describe that is nonsense. The guru, you can't, he said, you have just stated the guru is the direct manifestation, non-different from the Supreme Lord Krishna. Yeah, yes, that is right. Then if he's directly non-different from Krishna, and there is no difference between Krishna's inside and outside, then why you say guru is his inside and outside is different. You say that he is non-different from Krishna. Krishna's inside and outside is non-different because he's absolute. The outside is the absolute truth, the inside is the absolute truth. How you say that about Guru if he's not different from Krishna? He's considered the direct manifestation. They have the same spiritual quality. So Prabhupada explained that because the body of the Guru is used fully in the service of Krishna, it acts as the spiritual energy, non-different from the spiritual energy of the soul, or the spiritual energy of Krishna. Chinmaya, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa. And therefore, he gave the example that just as if you put an iron rod into fire, then when you touch something with that iron rod, it acts like fire, not like an iron rod. And therefore, by understanding that the Guru and his activities, which he follows and his disciples follow, their spiritual activities, then one can accept Guru and then one can follow faithfully. Prabhupada also explained that to substantiate this, that, so in other words, sometimes what the impersonalists say is, I respect you as Guru, the Atma is Guru, but I consider your activities of devotional service to be something material because they're getting married, they're earning money, they're doing this and that. So they consider those activities as material. Oh, I respect your Guru, but what you're doing with your body, what your disciples are doing, that's material. Their activities are material. So therefore they cannot follow. Now Prabhupada substantiated that, as we said. One who looks at a devotee, in the scriptures it says, that one is no better than an ass or a cow. If they look at a devotee, a woman, oh, that is a woman devotee, that is a man devotee, that is an Indian devotee, that is an American devotee, and distinguishes between them as, higher and lower, better, like that. That person no better than an animal. You cannot make those distinctions. Oh, there is a sannyas devotee, there is a grihasta devotee, like that. If one distinguishes on the bodily platform or on an external platform, it is offensive. And he gives this the example that Krishna, when he appeared in this world, he first appeared to Devaki and Vasudeva with 4 hands in his Narayan form. Like a little child with Narayan form. Fully decorated as a personality of Godhead. Jewelry, everything. So that was obviously not manufactured in Devaki's womb. There's a full wardrobe in there. Then he transformed into the little baby Krishna. And that baby Krishna is as much God as the Narayan form of Krishna. And Krishna can accept any form and he's still God. Therefore, even if he accepts the form of the deity, such as Jagannath, Jagannath's made of wood. But it's not that, there's some wood there and Krishna's in there. That deity, what we see as wood, is Krishna. That is another form of Krishna. And if Prabhupada says in his lectures, if he assumes the form of wood or stone, the worshipable deity, it is just another form of Krishna and is non-different from Krishna, the Absolute Truth. He can accept any form because everything is Krishna. That is his energy. He can act fully through his energy. And the spiritual master and the Vaishnava, if they actually dovetail, if they detach from the material aspect of the material energy, it regains its spiritual nature. So in this way, we follow the principles of Varnashram, but we don't identify ourselves externally. Even if we're following the principles of Varnashram, getting married, taking Brahman, doing so many things, there's women, there's men, so many things, like little segregation like that, but still we're all working together cooperatively. But we don't identify ourselves as men, women, Brahmanas, like that. We only identify ourselves on the eternal servant of Krishna, and in that way we're transcendental. And so now, Jayananda, he was so self-realized and God-realized that he understood that this Lord Jagannath is non-different from Krishna, and that by performing those activities of, he, basically got up and running the first Ratha Yatra, literally built the chariots from the ground up, and they, made the deities of Jagannath and what have you. And then for many years, each year he was actually, I think for 3 or 4 years they built new carts, and then gradually they were so good carts that they just looked after those ones. But that was so pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. And so Prabhupada, he mentions here that, let me see, there's one letter he describes about that, I think. In 1976, my dear Jayananda Das, please accept my blessings. For so long I have wanted to have Ratha Yatra in New York, and now at long last you have helped me fulfill this long cherished dream. I mean, since he was a little kid, basically, Prabhupada. The Rath carts were very strong and attractive, and I thank you and all of your assistants for working so hard to prepare such nice carts. May Krishna bless you all for your sincere service, that you may all go on making more and more advancement in Krishna consciousness. And I'll read in that line also, 1967, I'll read this last letter, and then maybe I'll take a couple of questions. So 1967, this is Prabhupada's first letter to Jayananda. And so I've read them all. My dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I'm so glad to receive your letter of August 30, and I know also that you're a sincere devotee of Lord Krishna. When you drive your car, you always chant, Hare Krishna. And when I was by your side, I could understand how heartily you have accepted the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Now, I've heard that when Jayananda used to chant, I think it was maybe Mukunda, he used to rock back and forth chanting very, Hare, really enthusiastically, very clear, very nice chanting. Krishna is very kind to all, but he is especially kind to his sincere devotees. Just while I remember it, there's one more pastime, talking about having a spiritual body. I heard Mukunda tell this story personally, that when Jayananda was in hospital, very, very ill, they went in and they asked him, is there anything you'd like? And he said, I'd like some pakoras. Right? So they cooked up this tub. You know how you have those plastic tubs? You could almost put a little baby in it, sit it like a sort of about the size of a big cake sort of thing. So they filled that up with pakoras, took them in. And Mukunda said he ate all of them. So, anyway, Krishna is always with us within our hearts, and he is always ready to give us direction, but because everyone is independent, Krishna responds cooperatively. Anyone who voluntarily cooperates with Krishna's desire, Krishna responds to his call very eagerly. Krishna descends to teach us Bhagavad Gita, begging our cooperation, and anyone who cooperates with him becomes blessed. You are sincerely cooperating with Krishna, and therefore you, all boys and girls in San Francisco, working together harmoniously, you're all sincere cooperating with Krishna, and therefore you, all boys and girls in San Francisco, working together harmoniously. Now, Prabhupada's saying, this is a symptom of the blessing of Krishna, that a devotee can work harmoniously with other devotees. And he says, harmony means Krishna consciousness. So we can take it that lack of harmony, someone's causing problem to devotees, a lack of Krishna consciousness. Without Krishna consciousness, there cannot be harmony in the world. I've received the report of successful performance of Janmashtami ceremony. I'm glad to learn that you are willing to come to India for further study. I received no letter from Dayananda or his wife Nandarani. I am anxious to receive the report of the Los Angeles Center. I do not know their address. Your acknowledgement, quote, so Prabhupada is quoting Jayananda, Krishna has been very merciful to me, unquote, is remarkable. You are realizing the fruit of chanting. So far my health is concerned, I'm improving. By Krishna's grace, and it is due to your feeling of my absence and eagerly awaiting for my return. So Prabhupada attributes his good health, his improving health, to the fact that disciples, especially such as Jayananda, are feeling separation in love from him and really wanting him to return. So that's giving Prabhupada, great enthusiasm. In fact, one of the third Gayatri mantra to the Guru that we chant, it is that he is enthusing us as we are enthusing him. You see? So when the Guru sees the disciples becoming advanced, so we're trying to enthuse, the Guru by pleasing him, and when he sees that, he says they're becoming advanced as a symptom of advancement, and the Guru becomes very pleased. So it's reciprocal. And that Prabhupada said that literally helped him, his health improved just because it lifted his spirit so blissfully. He says, please go on cooperating between your God brothers. I'm always with you. Never mind if I am physically absent. And here we also see the spiritual nature of the spiritual master. when we look at the Murti, as we look at the Murti of Jagannath, and we understand that, Lord Jagannath, Radha Ballabha, Gaura, they accept our worship through the deity. If we actually worship the Murti, it is non-different from Prabhupada. Prabhupada exactly accepts our worship. And because he is a representative of Krishna and empowered by Krishna, by the grace of Krishna, Prabhupada understands and can reciprocate with everything that we do. Please convey my blessings to all the boys and girls and tell them that I am very, very eager to return. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta, Swami Prabhupada. So, the only one I didn't read, which is, there's a letter in the BTG where Prabhupada offers his condolences. And, do you want me to read it? Why not? If I'm not putting people to sleep, then let's do that. Yeah, might as well just hear that last one. Let me see. Right, so here. No, I did read that. That was the one. I think he also. No, I don't know that I read it. Let's read this one. So this is the 5th of May, 1977. After he's passed away. My dear Jayananda, please accept my blessings. I am feeling very intensely your separation. So you see that reciprocal. We feel separation from the Vaishnava, from the Guru. The Vaishnavi, then it's reciprocal. In 1967, you joined me in San Francisco. You were driving my car and chanting Hare Krishna. You were the first man to give me some contribution, $5,000 for printing my Bhagavad Gita. After that, you have rendered me very favourable service to Krishna in different ways. I hope at the time of your death you were remembering Krishna, and as such, you have been promoted to the eternal association of Krishna. If not, if you had any tinge of material desire, you have gone to the celestial kingdom to live with the demigods for many thousands of years and enjoy the most opulent life of material existence. From there, you can promote yourself to the spiritual world. But even if one fails to promote himself to the spiritual world, at that time he comes down again on the surface of this globe and takes birth in a big family like yogis or brahmanas or aristocratic family, where there is again chance of reviving Krishna consciousness. But as you were hearing Krishna Kirtan, I am sure that you were directly promoted to Krishna Loka. And he quotes, Jamma kama chame divyam mivam yoveti tatvataha chakvadi hampana janma naiti mamiti sojana, Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Krishna has done a great favour to you not to continue your diseased body and has given you a suitable place for your service. Thank you very much, your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Jayananda Prabhu ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yeah, any comments or questions? It's a lot to meditate on. Prasad ki jai.